Okay, gang, this is a continuation really of the Mystique Part 5 video. In that video I showed how I installed the trunk pan, and I was working on the fitment of the quarter panel and the wheelhouse. And I talked about how the wheelhouse didn't fit the quarter panel very well, and I was going to section it. So that's what I've done. I've actually split it a little past center, and the reason I did that was when I put the wheelhouse in the quarter panel, I could find a good, let's say a happy place to where that part of it fit. And then same with the other piece, I could find where it fit. So that's why I split it right there. So at this point, I have the back half, let's say, of the outer wheelhouse clamped in place. There's a clamp there, a couple clamps there. And I've already mocked it up with the quarter panel, but I'm gonna show you what else I did. I took the front half, and after trimming and fitting, and I did this with the quarter panel on the car, and I can show you that too, but I wanted to show you the fitment. Now I've got a pretty clean gap. There's a little bit at the top there, but that'll fill with weld. And now the quarter panel fits the wheelhouse. So let me hang the quarter panel and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I have the quarter panel clamped in place. One clamp up here at the top and one clamp here at this back section. And now, I know it's really hard to tell, but I've got a real nice small gap, if any gap at all really, on the quarter of the wheelhouse. And then also, it's hard to see up here, but same thing, real nice and tight. And I may have to get underneath the car to show you this, but the fitment here, there is really no gap. So I'm really happy with that. And same way with the front, there's really no gap there as well. I know it's hard to see. I know it's a lot of work, and in one of my videos somebody made a comment. They said, I love how anal you are about this stuff. I hate to say it, but I am, and I'm much happier doing it this way than having to really, I don't know, go out of my way to modify things later. By doing all this stuff up front, test fitting, cutting, refitting, recutting, I will save myself a lot of trouble when it comes to the final welding and assembly. So I'll drive on from here. What I'm going to do is I'll take this back apart. I will drill holes in the wheelhouse where I'm going to weld it to the car, and I'll start with that rear half and get it attached to the car, and then work my way forward. And again, I'll keep on, fitting the quarter panel on and off until I'm really satisfied with it. Another thing I'll point out is this door gap. I'm really happy with that. Once I had the door set and got this in place, and I talked about how you can change the shape here, and that can still be done just by pushing on it a little bit, but I will do all that final fitment whenever it comes time to attach the quarter permanently. So I'm going to drive on and see what I can get done. So now I have the back half of the outer wheelhouse welded in place. And you can see the welds that I used. Drilled my holes and then did my plug welds. Welded the seam along the top here. And then I installed the front half. And it's not fully installed yet, but I welded the seam and I started putting in little tacks around the perimeter. And so I'll finish welding that tomorrow. And I've got started on the inside as well, and I'm pretty happy with it. And also I took just a little simple torch and I heated up this edge here like I talked about, and you can see there's that overlap that I was talking about earlier, and I've cleaned out the lead, and then I've hit it with a grinder just to make sure I don't have any lead left in there when I weld. There will still be some at the top on this upper half, but I'm not going to worry about that. It's far enough away that it's not going to affect the weld. So tomorrow I should have the quarter panel on and be working on the tail panel and everything else. Okay, now I have both halves welded together and welded to the car, and I did take my sanding disc and grinder and smooth down all the welds, and then I sprayed them with self-etch primer, and I used seam sealer to make sure everything was nice and tight. So those are in place. There's seam sealer back here where this panel meets Wheelhouse, and just a little more that I do to try to make things watertight. I will still need to seam seal the inside up in here, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'm going to finish that up once I get everything in place. So I prepped all the holes on the wheel arch down here where this part meets the rocker panel, and then of course the holes that meet the door jamb. I've also sprayed it with weld through primer, that copper stuff I'm using, and I've prepped the remaining holes up here and did my final fitment on the quarter. And so I'm ready to install the quarter panel, and I'm really happy with how this thing is fitting now that I've done this extra work to make sure the Wheelhouse is correct. So let me get that in place. Well, that's all I'm going to do for today. I did get the tack welds up here at the top of the quarter and welded the perimeter of the Wheelhouse and the arch. So, happy with that. I've also got some of the welds in up here at this corner. And just to show you something here, I put this strap between the quarters, and the reason I did that was to put a load on this quarter panel so that when the deck lid closes, I've got a gap that I like, and that gap is pretty even and pretty much the same on both sides. So what you find is this quarter may want to spring out just a little bit, and during the fitment process and before you weld, make sure you have that gap right. And you can also pre-fit the tail panel and see how well that fits. I did that a little bit and I'm happy with it, but I'm not ready to install it yet. So I had to strap on, pulling a slight load on the quarter, and then I welded it in place. And yeah, it's coming along pretty well. I'm pretty happy with the fitment. I haven't done anything up front yet where the door jamb welds in. I did a couple spot welds down here because I knew that angle had to match on the rocker, and I'll get to that on the next shot. Okay, so to finish off this video segment, I just wanted to show you the work here. I did weld the front edge here at the door jamb. I did weld the top where it meets, the quarter meets the old quarter or the roof line, and also welded it inside there. And as I talked about earlier in the video and I highlighted, make sure your gaps are right, because once it's welded on, that's it, unless you want to cut it all back apart. So here, I'll show you the door fitment. I'm very happy with the fitment. Gap is nice. I know with the color differences really kind of throw you off a little bit, but I'm very pleased with how this quarter fits. The next video segment, I'll just give you some highlights on it. I've already filmed a good bit of it, but I ran into problems fitting that tail panel, and I'll detail that later. So everything else is looking good, and I'll show more on this in the next video. It's coming along. I'm pretty happy with the results, and hopefully I'll be starting to do some body work soon. Otherwise, I'll be jumping back up front and getting the core support and aprons back on very shortly. Thanks for watching.